This tutorial will walk through how to create a 2 by 2 bar graph in Excel using APA formatting with the 7th edition. You can find this PowerPoint on Moodle. This PowerPoint shows several examples of APA style graphs, but the slide we want to focus on today is this chart showing what should and should not be included in an APA style graph. So to review, we want to keep things black and white or gray because color in the graph or many patterns or shading can be confusing and distracting to those reading it. As we recall, APA is all about clarity and concision so that the folks reading the paper will be able to clearly understand what's being presented to them. We also want to keep a consistent sans serif font. So sans actually means without in Latin, and serifs are actually the small lines that are at the edges of letters in a font like Times New Roman. So these are serifs. So a sans serif font would be without these serifs, like Arial or Calibri here, just as this text is written. And we want to use that for figures, especially when we're using numbers or text that is written sideways. We also need to add axes titles to our figure. Those are bold, size 11 or 12-point font. We need axes values, which are normal, not bold or italicized, and size 9 or 10 font. We also need our axes to have solid black lines with major outside tick lines. What this means is that sometimes our axes lines don't actually show up, so we would need to click on the axes and make the line color black for both of them. And then these tick lines are actually these small ticks that you see next to the numbers perhaps, or the words down here. And major outside, meaning outside of the graph, major are on the actual values that are shown here instead of minor, which would be in between each of them. We also need to use error bars for APA style, and we'll talk about how to enter the specific standard error of the mean value for each of the bars. A figure caption would actually be added in your Word document underneath the figure. It starts with the word note that's italicized, and then the rest of the text would not be italicized, but it describes general, specific, and probability notes, which you can see examples in this PowerPoint and also in your APA 7th edition manual. Things that shouldn't be visible in graphs we have here. A graph title. We do not want a pre-generated graph title here. We were actually going to add a figure title in Word as we were typing up the paper. We also do not want grid lines, and so those grid lines would actually extend on each of the major lines here from the y-axis, and those are distracting, so we don't want those. And we also don't want a graph border line. So what this means is that usually there's this line here that's around the whole entire graph. We don't want a border line so that when you click outside of the graph, the white background melds into the back of your paper. These next slides show what it would look like in Word, where we are adding a figure 1 at the top and then an italicized title also. Figure 1 is bold, by the way. Then you would copy and paste your graph in the middle, and then you'd have a figure note, just as we mentioned it here. And then this next slide shows you the things that you need to remove. This last slide has several tips that you can review. However, we'll go through step by step how to create this. Our data set right now is referring to this information. So I'll just mention here that a student is going to recruit participants to give a public speech that will be rated by experts. The rating will be from a 1 to 10 scale, and the participants are randomly assigned to be in a stress environment, which is told that their public speech video would be posted to YouTube, or not, a low stress environment or a high stress environment. In addition, the participants are either given a 10-minute meditation exercise to do just before the speech or not. So here is our 2 by 2 study. I'll show you what the graph will look like. Going to show low stress or high stress environment as well, mixed with the no meditation and meditation before they give the public speech. So we have a group that's going to be in low stress without meditation and low stress with meditation. Those are 2 separate groups. Then we have another group that's going to be high stress without meditation and high stress with meditation. Each of you will also be able to download this Excel tutorial, bar graph 2 by 2 tutorial for the student. That includes a means table, a means report that you would receive off of an SPSS output. It's very important for you to be using the desktop Excel app instead of the online Excel. Download it from Office 365 by logging in on your browser and choosing Office 365 install apps in the right corner. And that will allow you for free to download the apps onto your computer so that you will have all of the options that I'm showing you here. Before we get back to this, I just want to show another resource you have is a Word document that's called the step-by-step bar graph for 2 by 2. So this actually has steps exactly what you need to do, starting from what you would do in SPSS. But because we already have the output, we'll start with number 2, where it says the output should give you a nice means table labeled report. You're going to copy that into your Excel sheet, just as I showed you. Next, what we need to do is recreate the table in Excel. Go back to Excel here, because once you recreate the table, you'll be able to highlight information from the table. I'll show you, I already created it here. You're highlighting the information from a table that will allow Excel to automatically give you a bar graph that you need. From the table that you will have just pasted, you cannot easily highlight information. There's too much information here and it's not set up in the correct way, so that's why we need to recreate a table. This study is a 2x2 design. A 2x2 puts our information in a 4-slotted window, 2 cells across and 2 cells down, representing the several variables. So if, for instance, we say that our stress variable is going to be at the top, we might say low stress here and high stress here. And then on the sides, we might have no meditation and yes meditation. So what we've just created is the naming of our groupings here, and then we'd have a mean here, 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 and here. So there would be 4 group means, which is exactly correct when you think about what is the mean that would be located here for the low stress, no meditation group, right? And for here, what would be the mean located for high stress, no meditation? And the same thing here, low stress and meditation, and the same thing here, high stress and meditation. So when you think about 2x2, it would give you this type of box, and you'd sort of label those groups on the sides. So now from the table that we have above, we need to closely examine which means, so here's the means, we need to fill in this table here. So first I'm looking for the low stress, no meditation mean, and I'll go over here and say low stress, no meditation, here's the mean. So I can simply copy and paste that into the correct cell, right? So here I'll do a low stress meditation mean. Low stress meditation mean is here. High stress, no meditation is here. High stress, no meditation, excuse me, here. And then the high stress meditation is here. So there we go. We have a means table that shows the 4 group means for each of the groups in a way that Excel will understand. Now, what I can also do is create SEM table, which would show the same exact table, but with our standard error of means inside instead. So this would be our means table over here. And this is the SEM table. So actually what I'll do is copy and paste this information, but we want to remove those because those are means, and do the same exact thing, but enter in the standard error of mean, the correct one. So I'll go ahead and do this. Low, no meditation. Low meditation. High, no meditation. High meditation. There we go. Now we will go on to step 4, since we already recreated our table. Here it says highlight the correct data, which are the means values with independent variables labeled directly around it. If you see this light blue highlighting, this shaded box here, these are the cells that we will need to highlight when we create a graph in Excel. So let's go back to Excel here. And the ones we need to highlight are actually these. It would include low and high stress, no meditation and meditation, and all of the means values. So I will highlight that with a light blue, and I'll get rid of the highlight there. Once we highlight these, you can create a graph in several ways. One way may be that your Excel has a quick analysis little button. You can click that, and then go to the second option, charts, and then you will be able to see a preview of the first 2 clustered column charts, which are these. As you can see, for this first one, we have meditation on the x-axis and stress within our legends. The second one, we have low stress and high stress on the x-axis and meditation in our legends. For today, we are going to use the second option so that there's stress on the x-axis and meditation in the legend. So we will simply click that, and that will be our graph. Let me delete this and show you another way to retrieve the graph. So you'd also highlight the same exact, and if you can't see quick analysis here, you could right click and choose quick analysis, and those same steps will pop up. The third way would be to highlight and go to the top ribbon here and say insert, and then here it would say recommended charts, or even here it would look like a clustered bar graph up there. So let's click recommended charts, and then actually your first several options would be 2 different clustered column graphs, which are the same ones we were looking at. The second one would be low stress. So any of those ways you'd be able to get your graph here. Now we need to format it into APA style. And so the way to do that is to use this green button on the side. It's a plus button. And we're going to remove and add the things that we need. So please go back to the PowerPoint, the yes or no chart that we used, have that next to you so that you can see what you need. So I'm going to split my screen here and move over to the side, and that might help us a little bit. So when we click that green plus button, it's actually over here. We do want axes. You can click and not click to see what they are. We do want axes titles. We do not want a chart title. We do not want data labels. We do not want a data tape. We do want error bars. We do not want grid lines, and we do want a legend. So when you click off the appropriate ones, you can click out of that. And now we can start editing. So first off, it says black and white. And so let me expand this a little bit. When you double click on a bar, these options would come up on the side. We want to change the graph to black and white or gray instead of the colors that are currently shown. So you need to double click on the bars. So let's just do that again. And then this format data series will come up with a fill option, and it might have series options here. So click on the fill bucket. Now, obviously, we're going to look at fill and border. For fill, we want solid fill, and then we can change this perhaps to a dark gray. So I have now changed the color of my first sets of bars. So now I'll double click on the orange ones, which are now actually, again, highlighting both orange bars because they're both part of a series. And I want to go to format, the fill bucket, right? And go up to fill, solid fill. Now let's make them a very light gray, perhaps. I can also click them again and go into border and click solid line for black if I want to as well. So here we go. We've just made it black and white. We need a consistent sans serif font. So fortunately, all of our fonts are in Calibri right now, which is good. We don't need to change them. I can X out of this here to give us some more room. But what we do need are axes titles and axes values. So our axes titles have to be bold and 11 or 12 points. So I'm going to make them 12-point font. So let's label these axes now that are bold and 12-point font. On our y-axis, we are measuring the speech performance, which we said was rated from a 1 to 10. We'll fix that in just a moment. And then our x-axis here is actually labeling stress. And this section would be low stress and this would be high stress. Because the word stress is already in both of these areas and it is not too distracting to have so many words on the x-axis, I'm actually going to remove this axis title just because everything we need has already been shown in the x-axis here. If it only said low and high here, we would need that word that says stress. So we're clearly labeling what the axis is showing. Now I also notice all of these words are in gray font, so I want to make them black. So now we need to make our axes have solid black lines with major outside tick lines. So first of all, the axes, do you see here, there's actually not a line here for our y-axis. So if I click on the axis numbers and double click actually, the format axis will come up, and I do want to go into fill and line again and say down here line, solid line, black. And if I click outside, look at that. We'll do the same thing for the X, go down to line, solid line, black. Great. Now, all of these already have our major outside tick lines, but let me just show you how to get to those. So again, even if we clicked right on the y-axis, instead of the fill bucket, we would go over to axis options, and then we'd be able to see tick marks. So let's put those down, and we want our major ones, and we want them outside, which is great. I'll just show you. If you clicked inside, then they'd be right on the inside of the graph. So let's click those again, change it to what we do need, outside. Great. And our x-axis already has one that's sort of outside here, and it just separates the two groups. And our error bars are currently shown here. They are using a standard error value that is taken from Excel's standard number. What we need to do is actually put in the real information. I'm going to open up this real quick here. That was given to us from our SPSS table, right? We already made the SEM table down here. And so what we need to do is customize the value of the SEM, the standard error of the mean, for each of our groups here. On this dark gray low stress bar, that means no meditation, low stress, is at 7.33, and our standard error is at 0.43. That means that our mean could actually be up to 0.43 above the current mean or 0.43 below the current mean. This standard error looks much higher than 0.43. So what we need to do is click on the error bar here, and you'll see that, again, the error bar for both of the dark gray bars are highlighted. You might need to double click it to get up this format, but once that's here, go to error bar options right here, click this, and scroll down until you see custom. So you want to click this custom button and say specify value. Dialog box pops up here. So what it's saying is our positive error value, which means the amount that you're going to go above the mean. So here's our mean and the amount you go above. And then the negative error value would be the amount that you go below. Currently, they have it at 1. We don't want it to be at 1. We want it to be at 0.43. Now remember that whatever the standard error of mean is, it's going to be the same above and below this particular mean. But because we are highlighting both these bars at the same time, what you need to do is type in what the standard error of mean would be for this bar, and then type in what the standard error of mean would be for this bar. Both of them are no meditation. No meditation, 0.43 and 0.27. So once I clear this completely, I can type in 0.43228 and then comma, whatever's in here, which is 0.27061. 27061. Now what that's saying is the positive error for the first bar is 0.43, and the positive error for the second bar is 0.27. Now the negative error, as we mentioned, is going to be exactly the same for each of the bars. So 0.43228 and 0.270. Once you click OK on this dialog box, you'll see that both of the bars have shrunk quite a bit. And actually, these ones, of course, are showing us that the value is 0.43 above and below, and this is showing that it's 0.27 above and below. Now we need to do the same thing for our other bars with the light gray, which is meditation. And so we're looking at the standard error here and here. And again, remember that you're looking at your standard error of the mean table, not your means table. So again, as we go here, we want to double click on these error bars, and now both of them are highlighted. Make sure we're down here to error bar options. Scroll down, click custom, and specify value. I'll show you another way. Instead of typing in 0.45157, comma 0.25624, you can click this little toggle button, and as long as this is blank, you can drag and highlight both of these at the same time, which says from sheet 1, F43 to G43. We're on sheet 1, and this is cell F43 to G43. And then untoggle that and do the same exact thing for the negative value as we did before. So what that actually does is just take the value in here instead of me having to type it in. So those are two possible ways that you can get your error bars. To test this, if I change this to a 5 here and click enter, look what happened. Now my error bar for this particular bar went to 5 above and 5 below my mean. And so you can tell that it's working, that it clicked on the correct cell. So let's edit, undo that as well, and save. And now those are your error bars. So let's go back to the Word step-by-step document. We've done a lot of these steps here, as you can go back. But now what we need to do is just format the rest of the graph correctly according to APA style using that checkbox with the PowerPoint. So we already did all of these. We'll add the figure caption into Word. We removed some of these items. So we're pretty good here. But one thing that's really important to remember is that your legend needs to be inside of the graph, not near the x-axis. Here we go, where my legend is here inside the graph. If there's room, you could also put it right there, anything like that. Let me just make this look a little better there. And make sure that the graph, the legend, of course, is clearly visible. Okay, so that's where the legend goes. You can simply right-click and copy, or whatever you need to do to copy it. Open up your Word file. This is actually a template that you will receive as well. And we're going to, the template that you would receive looks like this. So let's see, I'll start a new page here. Hold on one moment. So on a new page, say it's blank, I want to paste my graph. And here's my graph, it's great. But look what's odd, it actually does have the outside border. Do you see how it's not seamless? It's a gray little border. That means I did not correctly remove it in Excel, which as we go back to Excel, you can see. So to remove that border, you need to click inside the graph and double click perhaps, and this will come up. You go to fill, right? Fill in line, go down to the border and say no line. So now when we click outside, there's no line there. So let me re-copy and paste that into my Word document. This one, paste. So there we go, it's nice and seamless. I want to put it in the middle of the page. So home, and I'll put it middle alignment there. Once we've pasted our graph into Word, we need to include the figure 1 bolded, title italicized, and the figure note directly below the figure. As I mentioned, this is where the figure note would go. Something that you can type into your figure note for this particular project would be to identify what the error bars are representing. We don't know if they are confidence intervals or standard error of mean values just by looking at them. And so your reader needs to know that the error bars represent standard error of mean. So that's simply what you could write for the figure note. I realized that I did not remember to show you how to change the values on the y-axis to accurately reflect the appropriate values. So as we mentioned, the possible scores for speech performance was from 1 to 10. Because Excel automatically chooses the y-axis values to be from 0 to 9, we need to change this. So you need to double click on the y-axis, and in the lastmost option, it says Access Options. And then right here in the beginning, it says Bounds, minimum 0, maximum 9. You need to change that to 1 and change this to 10 and click Enter and make sure it shows up. So now our y-axis is accurately reflecting our possible scores. So let's save this and we'd recopy it and paste it into that Word document. And now we have a correct APA style graph.